new digital scan of the Titanic has offered an unprecedented insight into the ship's final moments.
Here we really see the power of the simulation.
Wow. We are around 12,000 feet at the bottom of the ocean, looking up at the Titanic.
They called her unsinkable. But on a cold April night in 1912, the Titanic vanished beneath the Atlantic, taking more than 1,500 souls with her. For decades, her story has been pieced together by witness accounts and deep-sea dives. But now, for the first time, high-resolution scans have captured her wreck in striking detail, revealing clues hidden for over a century.
All these scans together allow us to put together an absolute digital replica in every detail, every rivet of the Titanic.
From her twisted bow to scattered debris fields, every image uncovers a piece of the story we never truly understood until now. Photogrammetry's power, resurrecting Titanic in 3D. The Titanic has rested on the ocean floor for over a century, but for the first time, we're seeing it as if it sank yesterday. Thanks to a new scanning breakthrough, researchers have built a complete 3D model of the ship, so detailed, it reveals secrets no one has seen since 1912. This stunning digital reconstruction was made possible by a process called photogrammetry. Atlantic Productions and the deep-sea mapping company Magellan led one of the most ambitious expeditions ever attempted at sea. Their mission is to bring the Titanic back into full view using underwater robots and cutting-edge cameras. These submersibles captured over 715,000 high-resolution images of the wreck, resting 12,500 feet below the surface of the Atlantic. Every image was precisely measured, aligned, and stitched together using advanced software, resulting in a virtual replica of the ship, accurate down to a single millimeter. Unlike the grainy sonar maps from Titanic's first discovery in 1985, this model reveals the ship's current condition in incredible detail. You can make out a single rivet, read the number 401 stamped into a propeller, and even spot personal items lost during the sinking. These images don't just bring the ship into focus, they clarify long-standing debates. For example, the clear scan of the propeller puts to rest conspiracy theories about the Titanic being secretly swapped with its sister ship, the Olympic. Photogrammetry works like a giant 3D puzzle. Can you imagine zooming in on a single bolt and reading it clearly without ever leaving your home? The underwater robots moved slowly around the wreck, taking overlapping photos from every angle. Once collected, powerful software aligned these photos to form a complete digital image of the ship and surrounding debris. The process continued in 2024, when a second expedition captured 2 million more images. These helped track visible changes, like missing railings or collapsing sections of the stern, offering new understanding of how fast the ship is decaying. But beyond the tech, what makes this approach special is its respect. Unlike salvage operations that disturb the wreck site and spark global controversy, photogrammetry is completely non-invasive. It doesn't move or touch a single item. Instead, it documents everything exactly as it is, like a digital museum frozen in time. As seen in National Geographic's Titanic, the digital resurrection, this scan is more than a visual marvel. It's a forensic tool. Experts like historian Park Stevenson are using it to re-examine how the ship broke apart, how the stern twisted, and where the chaos truly began. This cutting-edge technology finally gives us a full, unobstructed view of Titanic's remains. It's now possible to examine each section of the ship in chilling detail, starting with the most iconic and haunting of all. The bow section, a haunting snapshot of 1912. Out of all the scans revealing Titanic's final moments, one image stands out above the rest. The bow, still standing, still majestic, and hauntingly intact. It's the clearest link we have to the night the ship went down, offering a glimpse into 1912 like no history book ever could. As the camera drifts through the cold Atlantic depths, the bow of the Titanic appears, rising from the darkness like a sleeping giant. Despite sitting 12,500 feet underwater for more than a century, this part of the ship has remained upright, steady, and remarkably well preserved. The 2022 photogrammetry scans, built from more than 700,000 overlapping images, expose the bow in high resolution. It looks almost untouched compared to the shattered and collapsed stern. The bow's outer shell, made from thick steel plates, has held up against time better than anyone expected. Most of the original teak planks around the deck's edges are still visible, their surface surprisingly clean. The softer pine boards, once found between them, have long since broken down, eaten away by bacteria. In their place, rows of rivets and iron studs remain, like footprints preserved in time. Even the anchor, still lodged where it once rested during the voyage, shows how gently the bow settled into the sea floor. This level of preservation gives us important clues about how the Titanic sank. As the iceberg ripped through the starboard side, water slowly filled the front compartments. That slow, steady flooding allowed the bow to sink with control rather than collapse in chaos. Maritime historian Park Stevenson, one of the experts studying these scans, explains that the bow's descent spared it from the violent twisting that destroyed the rear half of the ship. Still, the scans show that the bow is not without damage. A large tear in the steel near the base marks the point where it slammed into the sea floor. That impact bent the hull and left behind a weakened structure where corrosion is spreading faster than elsewhere. The clarity of the photogrammetry allows scientists to track these changes over time and understand how different parts of the ship continue to break down. Looking at the scans, it feels like you're standing right there in 1912. You can imagine the crew on duty at the forecastle, or passengers strolling near the railings, unaware of the disaster ahead. The bow's iconic shape, famous from both history and Hollywood, still holds its form, even with rusticles hanging like underwater icicles. But the calm scene at the front of the ship fades quickly. While the bow offers a quiet, almost serene glimpse into Titanic's final descent, another part of the ship tells a very different story, one marked by chaos, urgency, and the desperate scramble to escape. The boat deck. Echoes of a frantic escape. Among the wreck's most haunting areas, the boat deck reveals Titanic's most human moments: panic, bravery, and the fight to survive. This is where the final lifeboats were lowered into the freezing Atlantic. Today, digital scans let us witness that chaos caught in a time warp. Moving up from the preserved bow, we arrive at the boat deck, once the heart of activity during Titanic's final hours. In 1912, this was where passengers gathered, crew gave orders, and lifeboats launched into the night. Now, over a century later, the 2022 photogrammetry scans give us a close-up view of this space, drawn from hundreds of thousands of high-resolution images. The damage here tells a different story than the bow. Much of the thin steel plating has rusted through, forming jagged holes. Ocean bacteria have been busy, feeding on exposed metal and leaving behind a web of corrosion. Lifeboat davits, the iron arms that once lowered lifeboats, lie bent or broken. Some still stand in place, as if waiting for orders that never came. Their positions mark where desperate efforts unfolded, frame by frame. Yet not everything here has crumbled. Electric winches used to raise and lower lifeboats still remain, their bronze components fighting off decay better than the steel around them. Bases of air ventilators, once used to bring fresh air below deck, also survive with surprising detail. These tough materials offer a glance of resilience within the wreck's decay. This section also shows how destruction during the sinking sped up the damage. Park Stevenson explains how falling structures, like the second funnel, smashed parts of the deck. Those impact sites now corrode faster. The grand staircase, once crowned by a glass dome, has collapsed completely. The roof gave way, leaving a wide opening that exposed what used to be elegant cabins and officer spaces. The 2024 scan uncovered something unexpected: a missing piece of railing. Stevenson compared it to losing an eyebrow off the Mona Lisa, a small but painful reminder of how quickly Titanic's details are vanishing. Each missing part is more than debris. It's a piece of history slipping away. Walking this deck digitally, you almost expect to hear voices shouting and lifeboats creaking as they swung out. What remains captures both the tragedy and the effort to save lives. The winches, the broken davits, the fallen dome. They show us that this deck was once alive with urgency. That intense activity left its mark above, but further down, the story changes, not through chaos, but through the sheer weight of destruction caused when the ship broke apart. A-Deck Promenade. Luxury crushed by time. Once reserved for the ship's wealthiest guests, this place was the crown jewel of luxury, now crushed and barely recognizable beneath the wreckage above. From the wrecked boat deck, we moved down to what used to be a peaceful retreat. The A-Deck Promenade was a first-class walkway, where the rich strolled beneath the stars and gazed at the Atlantic through enclosed steel screens. Protected from sea spray and wind, this area reflected the Titanic's attention to comfort and detail. But the 2022 photogrammetry scans show a much different scene. What once gleamed with polished wood and brass now lies buried under layers of twisted steel. Unlike Titanic's sister ship, Olympic, which had an open promenade, Titanic's A-Deck featured enclosed sections that provided quiet space for private cabins. But that design, while beautiful, made the deck more fragile. When the Titanic split in two during the sinking, the break crushed this area like a folded deck of cards. The scans reveal collapsed beams, screens eaten away by bacteria, and broken steel frames once filled with glass. This kind of collapse, called a layer cake by experts, marks how close the promenade was to the ship's breaking point. Maritime researcher Park Stevenson explains that steel stressed during the split has corroded faster than areas farther from the damage. You can see it clearly in the scans. Corroded steel sheets, broken supports, and outlines of former elegance now blending into the seafloor. The 2024 scans added more than 2 million new images. These new visuals show how time continues to erase what's left. Large parts of the deck's roof have vanished, while the walls of cabins once filled with luxury now crumble into dark emptiness. Still, even through the decay, you can make out the layout. You can almost picture someone like John Jacob Astor, leaning on the railing, unaware of the tragedy that would unfold just hours later. These digital reconstructions don't just show a shipwreck, they capture a lifestyle lost to time. The silent images show us that this wasn't just metal and wood, it was a floating world that vanished overnight. This ruined promenade marks the beginning of the Titanic's destruction. Now, let's follow the scans to the very spot where the ship tore itself apart. The breakup point, where Titanic snapped. If the Titanic's bow shows dignity in decay, then the breakup point is where that grace ends. This is the spot where the ship's fate was sealed. The moment Titanic split in two, leaving behind one of the most violent and haunting images of the entire wreck. Just aft of the A-Deck Promenade, the photogrammetry scans from 2022 reveal the ship's most violent trauma. With over 715,000 images stitched together, this section exposes a mess of collapsed decks, twisted steel, and wide-open spaces that once held passengers and crew. Unlike the mostly intact bow, here the ship looks shredded. The steel structures that once held everything in place are now crushed together. You can see the boat deck and A-Deck folded down like pages slammed shut, crushed by the forces of the split. Maritime researchers explain that this kind of structural damage speeds up corrosion. The scans support their claim, showing how quickly the breakup point is decaying compared to stronger areas of the hull. The twisted steel here is full of pits and holes, where rust and bacteria are eating it away faster than anywhere else on the ship. But this area also gives us new insight into how the Titanic actually broke apart. Early survivor accounts described the ship splitting high in the air before the stern dropped. But the 2022 scans and supporting simulations from National Geographic suggest something different. The real break was likely more subtle, happening at a lower angle. Water pouring in through 6 damaged compartments slowly pulled the ship apart. The Titanic was only built to survive flooding in 4. Those small gashes, described by scientists as paper-sized, were enough to let water creep along the hull until the stress became too much. In 2024, another 2 million photos were added to the model, capturing how the ocean continues to erode this area. The jagged break is now even more weathered, the steel edges curling like burnt paper under pressure. Looking at this damage up close, even digitally, you can almost hear the groan of metal and feel the terror of that moment. It's no longer just a story told by survivors, it's a visible wound, preserved in time. The scans let us study the break as both a tragic engineering failure and a moment of human catastrophe. While the collapse above speaks to the ship's gradual decay, what lies just beyond it reflects a far more violent end, where structural failure turned into total devastation. The stern section, a mangled evidence of violence. If the Titanic's bow is a solemn memorial, then the stern is a wreckage of pure destruction. This is where the ship's final moments were carved into steel, twisted, crushed, and scattered across the ocean floor. Roughly 600 meters from the bow, the stern tells a very different story. The photogrammetry scans from 2022, made from 715,000 images, show a violent and chaotic scene. Unlike the smooth descent of the bow, the stern plunged violently after the ship split. Still filled with air, it was dragged underwater, twisting and imploding as it fell more than 12,000 feet to the bottom. What remains is a mangled structure, with decks smashed together and hull plates peeled open like a can. These details, featured in Titanic, the digital resurrection, show how forcefully the stern was destroyed. The poop deck, once used by third-class passengers, now curls out like torn fabric. Cranes from the A deck lie broken and thrown far from their mounts. This isn't slow decay, it's the result of intense, sudden trauma. Still, among the wreckage, some fragments of 1912 remain. Thick teak planks, used to edge the decks, have survived better than softer pine boards, which have rotted away. In their place, small iron rivets dot the area like tracks from lost footpaths. The stern's mast still clings to the wreck, bent and tangled over what used to be a deckhouse. Even more surprisingly, the second-class entrance and part of its elevator system are still visible, standing out among the ruins. The 2024 expedition added 2 million new photos, offering fresh views of the stern's continued collapse. Researchers noticed that a section of the railing is now missing, something they compared to an eyebrow off the Mona Lisa. That small loss shows how fast the wreck is breaking down. Maritime expert Park Stevenson explains that the violence of the stern's fall made its metal weaker. Bacteria are eating away at it faster than other parts of the ship. Looking at these scans feels like standing on a battlefield. You see the ship's final seconds frozen in the wreckage. Every collapsed beam and torn wall speaks of panic, pressure, and power. Yet amid the wreckage and violence, the chaos left something behind. Clues frozen in time that now offer a more personal window into the tragedy. Rediscovered relics, artifacts that speak. Buried beneath the Titanic's shattered stern lies something even more powerful than twisted metal. Personal artifacts that bring the ship's story to life. These objects, caught in a time warp, turn the Titanic from a rusting wreck into a human tragedy we can still touch. Within the chaos of the wreck, the 2022 photogrammetry scans and the 2024 expedition's images reveal more than steel and debris. They uncover pieces of history once held in the hands of real people. One standout is the telemotor, a bronze hydraulic device that helped steer the Titanic. It still stands at the bridge, its strong metal holding up better than the ship's thinner, rusted parts. A propeller blade also lies nearby, stamped with the number 401, Titanic's official build number, silencing long-standing rumors that the ship was secretly swapped with its sister, the Olympic. Thanks to their durable materials, these large items have resisted decay, unlike much of the ship's delicate structure. But it's the personal items, scattered across the debris field, that feel the most haunting. The 2024 expedition captured one such discovery, a marble statue known as the Diana of Versailles. Once a centerpiece in the first-class lounge, it was described as a needle in a haystack find, a sign of the ship's former luxury. In contrast to that elegance, another artifact hits closer to the heart: the small purse of Marion Meanwell, a third-class passenger. Her bag, found near the wreck, still holds her medical card. She had been moved from another ship to the Titanic just before sailing, a twist of fate that sealed her doom. These stories, highlighted in Titanic, the digital resurrection, and the BBC's coverage, remind us of the many lives touched by the disaster. Other items include jewelry, shoes, and a pocket watch, each belonging to someone with dreams, fears, and a future that never came. Some of these objects are still preserved clearly in the 2022 and 2024 scans, which now serve as a digital museum. They let us explore the wreck in detail, while the ocean slowly eats away at what remains. While the rediscovered artifacts preserve silent memories of passengers lost to time, the scans also reveal a far more active form of heroism, one forged not in objects left behind, but in the final acts of those who chose duty over escape. Engineer's sacrifice, keeping the lights on. As the Titanic's steel slowly disintegrates, a different story comes to life through the scans. The tale of the engineer's sacrifice stands out, showing how these unsung heroes worked to keep the lights on when everything else was falling apart. While panic spread on the upper decks and passengers scrambled for lifeboats, Titanic's engineers remained deep inside the ship, ensuring that power stayed on until the very end. Their courage is captured in the 2022 Photoggramometry scans. These scans, highlighted in National Geographic's Titanic, the digital resurrection, help tell a story of selflessness and bravery. In Boiler Room 2, the scans show a steel plate bent inward, warped by the heat from burning coal, a sign that the boilers were still working even as water flooded the area. Further along the stern, one scan shows a valve stuck in the open position. This valve continued to let steam flow, keeping the generators running long enough to light the ship's decks and guide the lifeboats. These digital images confirm what survivors remembered. Even as the ship sank, its lights stayed on, giving the remaining passengers a better chance at survival. Researcher Parks Stevenson explains how the scans match the stories told by those who survived Titanic's final moments. The engineers' efforts delayed panic and allowed more people to reach safety. Yet, despite their sacrifice, all 25 engineers perished in the disaster. Their names might not be as famous as some of Titanic's passengers, but the scans prove that they fought to the very end. The 2024 expedition, which added 2 million new photos, shows more of the engineers' doomed struggle. Their workspace, now a twisted mess of machinery, stands as a silent tribute to their resolve. Seeing the scans is like stepping back in time to the Titanic's final battle. You can almost hear the roar of the furnaces as icy water rushed in. These engineers, fully aware that the ship was doomed, worked tirelessly to keep others alive. The engineer's sacrifice is just one piece of the Titanic's tragic story. Let's explore the human cost revealed through the scans and artifacts. The engineers' actions speak of duty and sacrifice in Titanic's final moments, but the wreck itself tells a quieter, more personal story, one etched into the very spaces and objects left behind. Human stories in the wreck, a digital tribute. Beyond the engineers' bravery, the Titanic's wreck tells a deeper story through the scans. These digital images, created from 715,000 photos, capture the human side of the disaster, making the wreck a living tribute to the 1,500 lives lost in 1912. The 2022 scans transform Titanic's ruins into a memorial, revealing the stories of those who perished. The grand staircase, once a symbol of luxury with its oak paneling and glass dome, now lies in ruin. The boat deck's hole shows where wealthy passengers like John Jacob Astor once mingled, but now only a faded memory remains. Nearby, the second-class deck house, once a hopeful gathering spot for families starting new lives in America, stands in broken silence. The elevator machinery, captured in vivid detail, reminds us of their lost dreams. Artifacts found in the wreck deepen this emotional connection. Marion Meanwell's small purse, displayed in BBC's coverage, contains a medical card that tells a heartbreaking story. A third-class passenger, she had been rerouted from the Majestic to the Titanic, only to meet her tragic end. The 2024 expedition added more to this story, discovering the Diana of Versailles statue, a marble piece once displayed in the first-class lounge. This statue brings us closer to understanding the luxury and privilege enjoyed by the Titanic's elite passengers. Alongside this, everyday items like children's toys, dinnerware, and worn shoes lie scattered across the ocean floor. These small personal objects, highlighted in Titanic, the digital resurrection, paint a clear picture of lives that were abruptly interrupted. The scans also offer a way to explore the Titanic's wreck in virtual reality, preserving these personal stories as the ship continues to decay. Walking through this digital version of the Titanic, you can almost feel the weight of the passengers' hopes and fears, from the third-class immigrants to the first-class magnates. While the wreck itself offers a poignant tribute to the lost lives, the scans go a step further, transforming our understanding of Titanic's final moments, revealing a level of detail that survivor accounts and past reconstructions could never fully capture. Unveiling the final hours, scan revelations. For over a century, we thought we knew how the Titanic sank, until this scan revealed what no diver ever could: evidence frozen in time that rewrites history. The scans have done something extraordinary. They've reshaped how we understand Titanic's final hours. For decades, stories about those last moments were blurry and inconsistent. Survivor accounts talked about chaos, panic, and confusion. But now, thanks to the 2022 photogrammetry scans, those moments have a sharper outline. Compiled from more than 700,000 images, the scans give us something eyewitness memories never could: measured truth. One major shift is how the bow actually sank. Many believe the front of the ship lifted high into the air before snapping in two, a scene often shown in movies. But the scans show something different. The tilt of the decks suggests a much gentler angle. This means the bow was likely filled with water more evenly, causing the ship to hold together longer than people thought. That slow descent didn't make things any less tragic, but it does change how we picture it. It wasn't a clean break. It was a drawn-out, painful slide into the deep. The scans also bring clarity to the lifeboat launches. Earlier reports made it seem like total disorder, with lifeboats launched half full and in no clear order. But the positions of several davits, those crane-like arms used to lower lifeboats, are still visible. Some are frozen in place, pointing outward, especially on the starboard side. This suggests that parts of the crew worked with speed and control, not panic. Despite the fear, they managed to get more boats away than previously believed. One of the most surprising discoveries is near the grand staircase. There, the scans reveal intact electrical fittings, evidence that the ship still had power after it split. That flash of electricity, even for a few seconds, speaks to the stubborn efforts to keep systems alive. It's something no one could have seen at the time, but now it glows from the wreck like a final heartbeat. These scans don't just show wreckage, they offer a timeline. They turn guesswork into data. They let us revisit that night, not through fading memories, but through solid proof. They remind us that the Titanic didn't simply vanish, it fought to stay afloat. And in that struggle, we see not just the ship's fall, but the bravery of the people who tried to save it. The Maheno, a shipwreck in shallow waters, lost its upper structure within decades. Titanic sits deeper, which slows the process, but not by much. What will be left in 50 years? The scans suggest that all the thin outer pieces may vanish, leaving only the ship's thick steel ribs. These skeletal remains would look more like a whale's bones than the famous liner that set sail from Southampton. The scans featured in Titanic. The digital resurrection are now crucial. They act as a digital time capsule, allowing future generations to see what the ship once was before the sea finishes its work. Thanks for watching. See you in our next video.